I made a balisong, almost entirely by hand, with no experience and no computer-assisted machining. And it sucks. Unless you're trying to lubricate the best balisong of all time with spreadable margarine, in which case it's fine at best. Over the past 3 years of making balisong content, Will and I have learned a lot about what makes a balisong good and bad. So much so that Will literally designed one and it's currently being made and selling shockingly well. Video coming soon, and it's a spicy one. From flipping awful $20 trainers to $1,000+ grails, and even seeing firsthand the crazy amount of time and money and skilled labor that it takes to make a balisong on any kind of large scale, we've learned at least a thing or two how much it takes to make a balisong, let alone a good one. So how did I, someone who has absolutely zero experience with anything in the realm of metalworking, make this absolute disaster? Honestly, most of my major accomplishments in life have kind of just come from wanting to make something exceptional. Least stupid. And a lot of help from one of the best balisong makers of all time, Stitch Steel. And truthfully, this entire process taught me that, yeah, I can make some pretty stupid shit. But also, holy good lord, does it take a lot of effort to make even stupid shit. And that it's stupid fun. So it's time to break down exactly how I used 4 25-cent butter knives from Walmart, some Chinese balisong hardware, a manual drill press, a bandsaw, and a belt sander, paired with an amazing amount of experience from an absolutely amazing person, all to create what I would say is the worst balisong of all time, minus the spider knife.
Fuck you.
So let's warp back to March of 2022, when Will and I were working on our infamous Best Balisong Ever April Fool's video, focused on this masterpiece. It was awesome to finally do an April Fool's video, but only focusing on the fidget mech felt short-sighted. Will knew that I had some kind of trick up my sleeve for the April Fool's video, and with his permission, I kept him 100% in the dark about all of the work I was doing for the entire process. Up until the moment that the April Fool's video went live for everybody. And I did record Will's first reaction to this, and I'll show that later in the video. But I'm getting ahead of myself, obviously. The conception of this began with a terrifying question of, what if somebody made a butterfly knife, but just took the fly out of it? And thus my technological terror began construction. At first it was just supposed to be 2 handles very, very, very crappily slapped together with a middle piece to keep the blade together. It was not supposed to flip at all, in any way, shape, or form. And because of that, I naively believed that I could do the entire process by myself. I didn't need to do any machining or anything like that, right? It was just crappily slapping some stuff together. Like, to cut them in half, I obviously only needed like some strong metal cutting scissors. And the most advanced piece of metalworking equipment that I own, a $30 drill from Aldi, which is the best grocery store, don't at me. I went to Home Depot and bought a mishmash of different parts that I thought might serve as the pivot mechanism, and I started trying to cut the butter knives in half. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried. Nothing. Okay, scrap that, maybe I can start drilling some holes in the handles. And I drilled, and I drilled, and I drilled. And I made this hole in 45 minutes. Oh dear. I was in trouble. I needed to have the video done by April 1st, and it was mid-March by this point, so the clock was ticking. So I reached out to one of the best metal craftsmen I've ever met, who also happens to live like 40 minutes away from me, Stitch from Stitched Steel. He broke down very kindly that there was essentially no way I was going to do this on my own. I needed actual tools and equipment to make this feasible at all. And I obviously needed more than just a drill and the help of a few Brandon clones.
Yo, what's that you call?
Did I say it was time to come out? So Stitch invited me to his workshop, where he makes incredible balisongs like the Alien and the Paradigm entirely by hand, and they are beautiful and they flip amazingly well. He offered up all of his tools and equipment and offered to help out where I needed it. But that's when him and I realized that this could be way more than just a crappy mishmash of different parts. We could make this flippable. Not good, but flippable. Like this brand new mini Brandon clone. So we gathered all the parts I had assembled. 8 butter knives, because of course I was going to screw something up. Some random bolt nuts that I thought could maybe serve as spacers or something like that. And some extra hardware that I had from The One, because I had to replace the hardware on my The One Alien 3 times. And that's where I learned how much I had to learn. From the complexities of cutting holes and drilling into different types of metal and the different tools to do that with, how to smooth out those cuts and the holes being drilled, how incredibly precise everything had to be. But unfortunately, we didn't have time to make this precise. So we just eyeballed every single aspect. Also, apologies in advance for the poor quality of the footage. I just brought the camera down and slapped it down on a tripod and just pointed it generally at what I was doing. So sorry about that. But step 1, cutting the holes into the butter knife handles for the pivots. We found the general size the hole needed to be, and Stitch showed me how to use a drill press, and I got going. And they came out as good as a first-time machinist could expect. Bad, but they worked. Step 2 was cutting the butter knives in half to make the actual handles themselves. This was definitely the easiest part of the process because you just had to take a little piece of metal, then put the handle in front of it and push it into the bandsaw, and then boom, handle. Step 3, sanding. This of course didn't need to be perfect, but I wanted the edges of everything to not be super sharp because even though I do like pain, not that much pain. I don't remember the specs of the machine or the level of grit that was used or anything like that, but I do know this boy gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. And given that I selfishly enjoy having skin on the end of my fingers, I had to be very careful. But after a lot of trial and error and just a dash of sparks, I managed to create a relatively rounded out edge for each handle. And then March Brandon had this to say. So we're getting there, and then the blade. The blade is getting there, and we're cutting some stuff for a place to go somewhere. I don't fully understand it yet, but you know what? We're just having a great time. Step 4, the McFucky-Wucky. This stage was the biggest question mark in my mind from the beginning of the whole thing. With the normal Balisong, the blade is specifically made so that the handles can attach to it. With this thin little boy, not a lot of hips to grab here. So we drilled 2 holes in the base of the blade, took 2 pieces of scrap aluminum, press fit some pins into the scrap pieces of the blade, then ground them down a lot, which was great because I really like fire, to make sure everything was relatively equal on each side, then cut 2 small pieces of the butter knife handle and wedged those between the sides of the McFucky-Wucky, which is what I'm going to call it for the rest of this entire video so I can deal with it, and then had to grind those down to make sure that those were equal, and then the disaster attached to the disaster was complete, and the blade was officially attached to it. I cannot stress enough how much of this would not have been possible without Stitch's expertise, but this whole thing in particular was quite a journey. Those that know anything about metalworking have probably cringed throughout this entire segment. No, probably this entire video, but trust me, we were not looking for the perfect solution here. And after all that, we drilled some more holes into the McFucky-Wucky and realized that we could actually kind of start to put this together. And at this point, we had this. We're about halfway there, but it's the worst, which is exactly what I wanted. And that took 4 hours, and it was 11 p.m. on a weekday, with work the next morning. So we scheduled day 2. Day 2 was about bringing all the crazy stuff we'd been doing and putting it all together, and making something that could even remotely be called a Balisong. So it was straight back to McFucky-Wucky. The edges of it were extremely sharp, so I spent a ton more time very, very slowly grinding away at each side of it to try to round it out as best as I could. I did not want a spider knife Chaplin experience. And by this point we had something that at most could barely function, and at the very least could feed a Brandon clone or something.
Did you say feeding time?
I will feed you when you stop being a little bitch. So step 5, drilling more holes. Since I had the final size for the McFucky-Wucky, I could do the holes for the Zen pins and the holes at the bottom of each handle for the spacer screws. This is where eyeballing every single aspect of the entire project finally got the best of me. I royally screwed up the placement of one of the holes, and there was no way that the barrel was actually going to be able to fit through it. So March Brandon had this to say.
Sometimes you fuck up your hole spacing and the master has to step in. But what that just means is more jank, and that's okay, because this thing is a travesty.
But once Stitch graciously fixed the disaster of my disaster, we reached step 6, putting things in holes.
Oh, now you want us?
Oh, we're gonna be putting things in holes, all right. The hardware for the Zen pins and the spacer screws were from a BRS replicant, and they were so tiny that I lost a bag of like 10 of them and I never found them again. Stitch, I'm so sorry, I love you so much. And then we ended up using one of the only things that I had bought for my original hardware idea, the stupid little bolt nuts that ended up being nearly the exact size we needed when they were stacked together. And that kind of helped balance things, sort of. And at that point, we're like, oh my God, is this gonna be good? So we screwed all that together, used the one hardware for the pivots, and oh my God, it was done. You're okay with it? Well, no, it hurt to do almost any trick on, so it was back to the sander.
Sander? I hardly know her.
Okay, that's it. So I rounded out every edge that I possibly could after it was fully assembled, and after I did that, the Octopus Factory Butter Knife Fly Not Shap Stainless China Steel toy was born. So what did I even make here? Well, it kind of checks some of the boxes a flipper would need. It has stainless steel sandwich handles where the butter knife texture gives a decent amount of grip. The nuts at the end obviously give it a wacky handle bias because what would you expect from this toothpick of a blade? It's got BRS Zen pins that don't fully screw in all the way, but then it also has the one hardware and it weighs like 5.3 ounces. The original Kershaw Lucha is 6 ounces. It is probably the dumbest sized balisong that has ever existed, with a thigh gap wider than the bearing straight. And it even fits in our new balisong cases. Didn't even have to put it in the storage slot. Cases.willhirsch.gay. And in terms of flippability, I would say that it flips. That's the end of that sentence. What do you want from me? As I was very transparent about before, this thing sucks to flip. It's so exceptionally handle bias and so much smaller than like 95% of balisongs. It carries momentum like almost too much. And it's actively losing durability because it's all crappy stainless steel. There's like damage up here because it hits the nuts whenever it closes. The Zen pins are all being slowly worn in. It used to not be bent like that. It used to kind of be like that. And it's just got a little pecker. Little pecker pokes out when it's closed. Little pecker, he's adorable. But the play on it is fine. And it swings. There's the swing. And again, the handle texture of the butter knives makes it weirdly grippable. And Stitch, who's amazing at flipping, could at least do this with it.
Oh my God, it actually halfway flips. I mean, like, legitimately. Oh my God.
But amidst all that craziness, I really can't express how much fun I had making this. And I have a way deeper understanding of balisongs that making this taught me. And to Stitch, you are an absolutely amazing teacher. And while, of course, this wouldn't have been possible without his help, I really feel like I'm the one that made this. And that honestly feels really, really cool. A ton of people at Blade Show East got to flip this, and every single person's reaction, seriously, every single one was like, why is this not the worst thing I've ever flipped? On the BS score, probably everybody would give this at most a 2 out of 10 flipping score, but it's not a 1 out of 10 flipping score. And that's pretty sweet. And of course, having this disaster allowed me to make the second half of the April Fool's video, which is probably the most horrifying piece of content I've ever put onto the internet. But it's my exact brand of chaos. And so is this. Here's how Will reacted.
What the fuck?
To put all the lubrication onto my balisongs.
How did you get that made?
True evolution of the balisong hobby.
They're all for your successor to Benchmade.
This balisong restored my ability to feel. This is definitely getting my first balisong. That's
Holy shit!
How do you know it?
Holy shit!
actually gay.
What the fuck? Stitch made this?
No.
Oh.
Stitch taught me how to make it.
Oh wow. The worst part about this thing is that it actually isn't.
It's Loctite.
It's not that bad.
But thank you so much to everybody that helped with this. To Stitch especially, his help was absolutely amazing. and I learned so much during it, so thank you so much for that. Thank you to the Patreon supporters, a lot of whom were actually in the April Fool's video as the voice cast for the review section of the April Fool's video. And also, I didn't see a single comment about this, but yes, that was Lucas from Squid Industries that was one of the voices of the reviewers in that video, so thank you to him as well. Whenever the Vulp got announced, people started asking me, oh my gosh, Brandon, when are you gonna design your own Balisong? And I'm over here like, what do you want from me? You think the world needs more of this? We don't need more butter scooping, that's for sure. I can already fit this in my mouth plenty well. It only barely scratches the back of my throat. I need to stop doing that. But yeah, thank you so much. We got shirts, we got merch, we got Patreon, $3 a month, the whole shebang. This was a wild video. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go try to find Will. Oh my god, I think he's in the closet. Will? Oh my god, have you been in here this entire time?
Yeah, dude.
Was it the Brandon clones that put the entire fidget mech in your butt?
Yeah, man, it's not Shap, so it feels good.
Okay, cool. I'll have a go.